Hey there, I'm the Dark Hour Storyteller, and I'm here to keep you company tonight. I know many of you use these stories to drift off to sleep, so before you get too cozy, go ahead and like the video, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Also, where are you watching from, and what time is it for you right now? Get comfortable, relax, and let's begin. I don't expect you to believe what I'm about to tell you. Truth is, I don't really believe it myself. Not entirely. But I've got nothing left to lose by putting this out there. Maybe writing it down, maybe saying it out loud, makes it all feel less like a dream. Less like I've completely lost my mind. My name's Daniel. I'm 38. And 2 months ago, my wife died in a car accident. We were arguing. Something stupid. Something that doesn't matter anymore. I took my eyes off the road. Just for a second. They said it was a deer. That I swerved. That I clipped the guardrail, flipped the car, and she was gone before the ambulance even got there. She died instantly. I didn't. The airbag saved me. Seatbelt too. And ever since that day, every single moment I've been breathing has felt like a punishment. I stopped answering texts, stopped going to work, stopped pretending to sleep. Everyone kept telling me it wasn't my fault, that it was just a horrible accident. But they weren't in the car. They didn't see her head tilt toward me, the look in her eyes, right before we crashed. So I did what cowards like me do. I ran. I packed up the bare essentials, some clothes, a lighter, my journal, and the one photo of her I kept in my wallet. And I drove. I didn't know where I was going until I got there. It was a tiny rental cabin, 3 hours outside of anything you'd call civilization, buried deep in the woods, far from the highway, far from people. The kind of place you book when you don't want to be found. And that was exactly what I needed. The guy at the gas station looked confused when I mentioned the address. Said most people don't go up there this time of year. Storm season, he warned. You'll be cut off for days if it floods. I told him I didn't mind. He raised an eyebrow, like he was about to say something else, but then just shook his head, rang me up, and handed me the keys. I should have known then. That was the first sign. The first hint that something wasn't right. By the time I pulled up to the cabin, the sun was already setting. It was old, wooden, creaky, with vines curling up one side like it had been trying to disappear into the trees for years. No neighbors, no street lights, no cell signal, just me. And whatever silence the forest was willing to offer. And for a while, that silence felt like a blessing. The first night, I sat by the fireplace with a cup of black coffee, stared at the photo of her, her smile, the way her hand always curled into mine when she thought I wasn't paying attention. I whispered, "I'm sorry," at least 100 times, maybe more. That's when I heard the creak. Just one, from the porch. At the time, I thought it was the wind, maybe a raccoon. It was an old cabin, after all, but something about it didn't feel right. Like the sound wasn't just random, like it had weight, intention. I didn't know it then, but that was the beginning. The first quiet warning. The forest had noticed me. And the cabin wasn't empty. But I stayed, because when you've already buried the love of your life, you stop being afraid of ghosts. Pause for 3 seconds, and maybe that's exactly what they wanted. That first night, I told myself I wasn't going to let my mind play tricks on me. I lit a small fire in the hearth. There was already a pile of chopped wood stacked neatly by the door. That was one of the only comforting things about the place. Its simplicity. No distractions. Just a cabin in the woods. Peace and quiet. And for the first couple hours, I got what I came for. I sat at the tiny kitchen table and started writing in my journal. Something I hadn't done in years. Mostly ramblings. Bits of memory. Descriptions of her. How she used to tuck her hair behind her ear when she was nervous. How she sang along to songs she didn't know the words to. How she smelled like lavender every single day for the last 10 years we were together. Funny thing is, that smell never really left me. Even there, in that old, musty cabin in the middle of nowhere, it still smelled like her. I remember pausing mid-sentence, sniffing the air. It was faint, but definitely there. Soft, floral, almost too familiar. I wrote it down like everything else. The cabin smells like lavender, just like her. I figured it was a trick of my brain, a memory so strong it infected my senses. Grief is funny like that. It blurs the line between real and imagined. I should have left it at that. But around midnight, the noises started again. It was subtle at first, just the same creaking I'd heard earlier on the porch. 1 or 2 groans of wood, like something heavy had shifted outside. I told myself it was just a raccoon, or maybe a possum, but then it came again, slower this time, like footsteps, 4 steps, then nothing, then the slow, rhythmic creak. I grabbed the flashlight, walked to the front door and opened it, and there it was. The old wooden rocking chair, the one I hadn't touched since arriving, was rocking gently back and forth, just enough to be noticeable, just enough to make my stomach twist. The air was completely still. No wind, no rain, no signs of life anywhere. I stood there watching it for what felt like a full minute. Then I laughed, shook my head, said something like, "All right, Dan, you're sleep deprived. That's all." I nudged the chair with my boot to stop it from rocking and went back inside. The fire was dying. The smell of lavender was stronger now. Too strong. Like someone had sprayed it in the room just seconds before I walked in. I tried to ignore it. Sat back down at the table. Picked up my pen. But the words wouldn't come. Something felt wrong. Heavy. The silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It felt thick, like the walls themselves were waiting for something. And then, footsteps, above me. I froze. 2 slow steps. Then another. Then nothing. I looked up. The ceiling beams were exposed, old, weathered. The cabin was a single story. There shouldn't have been anything up there. But the sound was unmistakable. Heavy footfalls, like someone walking slowly from one end of the ceiling to the other. I grabbed the flashlight again, tried to tell myself maybe there was a loft I'd missed, or an attic, or squirrels, or raccoons nesting in the walls. But when I scanned the cabin again, I noticed it. A wooden panel near the back hallway, high up, almost flush with the wall, an attic hatch. I dragged a chair over, climbed up, and the moment my hand touched the wood, I knew something was off. It was cold, ice cold. Even though the cabin had warmed up from the fire, that panel felt like it had been buried in snow. I tried to pull it open. Nothing. That's when I saw the nails. Big, rusted nails, 6 of them, hammered in at uneven angles like someone had sealed it in a hurry. Not just closed, sealed, like they wanted to keep something in. I climbed down without opening it. Told myself again it was just animals, that maybe the previous owner had problems with bats or raccoons and boarded it up. I told myself a lot of things that night, but none of them explained the next part. I went back to the table. That maybe the previous owner had problems with bats or raccoons and boarded it up. I told myself a lot of things that night, but none of them explained the next part. I went back to the table, and sitting next to my journal, the one I had closed, zipped into my bag, was the photograph, the one of my wife. It was out, face up, centered on the table. I didn't take it out. I swear on whatever I have left of a soul, I did not take it out. I stared at it for a long time. Her eyes, that smile, the one I hadn't seen since she died, the one I can't stop seeing even when I close my eyes now. And then, without thinking, I whispered, "Are you here?" Nothing answered. No sound. No movement. Just that silence again. But now it felt like something was listening. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was scared, but because for a few fleeting hours, some part of me wanted it to be her, even if it wasn't. Even if it was something else entirely. The second night, a storm rolled in. It wasn't supposed to, not according to the old man I rented the place from. He'd said the forecast was clear for the week, but the clouds came anyway, thick and low, like they'd been waiting for me. The wind hit the cabin hard, but the weird thing was, it wasn't constant. The gusts would come in sudden bursts, like someone was exhaling from all sides at once. Around 10:30, the lights started flickering. I figured it was just faulty wiring. It's an old place. But it never happened during thunder. Never after lightning. Only in the dead quiet. Like something was choosing the exact moments to remind me I wasn't alone. Eventually, the power went out completely. No warning. No storm surge. Just a slow dimming. Like someone twisting a dial. I sat in the dark for a long time. Fire was out. Flashlight battery was low. And the smell of lavender was back. Stronger this time. Clinging to the air like perfume sprayed too close. I told myself I'd go to bed. Clear my head. Try again in the morning. But when I walked into the bedroom, I saw it. Laid out neatly on the bed, like someone had just unfolded it. My wife's scarf. Her favorite one. Blue and grey, with that little stitched heart near the hem. The same one I buried her in. I didn't touch it at first. Just stood there, staring at it. My brain raced, tried to come up with explanations that made sense. Maybe I had another copy. Maybe in the haze of packing I'd thrown it into my duffel bag without thinking. Maybe the grief made me imagine it. Maybe. But I knew the truth. I was the one who chose it for her. I remember standing at her casket, tucking it under her hands before they closed the lid. There's no version of reality where that scarf should be on my bed. I picked it up slowly, fingers shaking. It was warm, not dusty, not crumpled, like it had just been worn. I held it to my face, and it still smelled like her, like lavender and pine and something else I can't name. I dropped it, stumbled back, sat on the edge of the bed and whispered to no one, "What is happening to me?" That night, I didn't even try to sleep. I laid there with a flashlight pointed at the ceiling, waiting for the morning like it was some kind of salvation. But I must have dozed off, because somewhere around 3 a.m. I started dreaming. Only, it didn't feel like a dream. It felt like a memory I'd never lived. I was standing in the middle of the woods, same trees, same mist, same cold, and I could hear her. Her voice, soft, calling me Daniel, my name, only she never called me Daniel. She always said Dan, but in the dream it was full, deliberate, and there was sorrow in it, not fear, not anger, just sadness, like she didn't want to be calling me, but had no choice. I started walking toward the sound. Branches scraped my arms, but I didn't stop. I didn't even look down. I just kept walking, deeper, past trees I didn't recognize, past a strange pile of stones, too perfectly stacked to be random, and then the ground gave way. I jolted awake, heart hammering, sweat soaking my shirt. The flashlight was dead. I was sitting upright, and the window was open. It had been closed when I went to bed. I'm sure of it. I got up, grabbed my boots, and stepped outside, just to breathe, just to remind myself the world still existed. But when I turned the corner of the cabin, I saw something I hadn't noticed before. A hole, almost completely hidden by overgrown brush, maybe 6 feet across, surrounded by moss and flat stones. I walked closer. It was a well, old, dry, no rope, no bucket, just a dark, black hole in the earth. I got as close as I dared and looked down. There was nothing, no sound, no movement, but I swear, and this is the part one still can't say out loud without shaking, I heard breathing, slow, deliberate, like something deep beneath the ground was waiting, watching. I backed away fast, nearly tripping over a root, fell hard, cut my hand on a rock. When I looked up, the front door of the cabin was wide open. I hadn't left it that way. I know that sounds small, dumb even, but at that point every little thing started to pile up, like reality itself was unraveling around me, thread by thread. Back inside, I washed the cut and sat on the couch, trying to breathe through the panic. Then I heard it, clear as day. My name, whispered right next to my ear. Daniel. I spun around. No one there, but the voice was too real to ignore, too close, and the smell, that damn lavender, was so thick I could almost taste it. I didn't sleep the rest of the night, didn't move, just sat there until the grey light of morning filtered through the window. I couldn't keep pretending it wasn't real anymore. The scarf, the dream, the voice by the well, that breathing. I hadn't slept in nearly 48 hours. My hands wouldn't stop shaking, and I kept catching myself staring into corners, into shadows, like something was about to step out of them. I needed proof. Not for anyone else. Not really. For me. So I pulled out the old digital recorder I'd brought to log journal notes. I set it on the kitchen table, hit record, and just talked. My name is Daniel Moore. I'm staying at the Galloway cabin. It's day 4, and I need to record what's happening here, because I don't trust my own memory anymore. I listed everything. The flickering lights, the scarf, the voice, the dry well, even the smell, the lavender, always showing up when something was about to go wrong. I let the recorder run through the night. Didn't expect much. Maybe the creaking porch again, maybe some wind, but I was too exhausted to do anything else. I finally fell asleep on the couch, curled in a blanket that didn't feel like mine anymore. The next morning, I played it back. At first, it was what I expected. My voice, a few long silences, some wind against the walls. But then, around the 3-hour mark, 2:47 a.m., something came through. Very faint, so soft I almost missed it. A woman, humming, a slow, gentle lullaby. A slow, gentle lullaby. The exact one my wife used to hum when she watered the garden. Not a melody you'd find in any songbook, just something she made up. I used to tease her about it. I froze. There was no mistaking it. That tune had only existed between the two of us. She'd hum it when she couldn't sleep, when she braided her hair, when she thought no one was listening. I sat there for a full 10 minutes, holding the recorder like it might burn me. I decided to check the attic again. The first time I'd looked, it had been sealed shut, nailed down, dusty as hell. Now, the ladder was down, just hanging there, like someone had pulled it from the ceiling and left it for me. I don't even remember walking over, just looking up, heart in my throat. I climbed slowly, one hand on each rung, flashlight clenched in my teeth. The attic was small, maybe 12 by 12. Cobwebs, dust, and the smell again, stronger than ever. But what stopped me, what made my blood run cold, were the papers, dozens of them, pinned to the wooden beams with old rusted nails. Some yellowed with age, some fresh, too fresh. Drawings, childlike, scrawled in what looked like charcoal, or soot, or something darker. Stick figures, always the same ones. A man, a woman, a smaller shape in between them, over and over. Sometimes the man was alone. Sometimes the woman stood in the trees, arms reaching out. One drawing showed the cabin, engulfed in flames. Another, the well. Only in that picture, it wasn't dry. There was something crawling out of it. But the worst one was a figure with impossibly wide eyes. No pupils, just two black pits on a pale, oversized head, and underneath it, written in jagged letters, "I saw you in the car." I dropped the flashlight. It bounced once, casting wild shadows across the beams before rolling to a stop. I couldn't breathe. It was like the air had thickened, turned to syrup in my lungs. I scrambled down the ladder, barely touching the rungs, slipped on the bottom step and hit the floor hard. Didn't care. I had to leave. Now, I grabbed my bag. Didn't even check if I had everything. Just bolted out the front door and ran to the car. Got in. Slammed the key into the ignition. Nothing. Just a sick grinding sound. Once. Twice. Then silence. I tried again and again, but it was useless. I got out, started to circle the car, and that's when I saw them. All four tires. Slashed. Not punctured. Not flat. Slashed. Deep, jagged cuts. The kind you don't get from bad roads or tree roots. Someone, something, had made sure I wasn't going anywhere. I stood there in the grey morning light, surrounded by trees that suddenly felt like they were leaning in, like the forest itself was listening. And for the first time since arriving, I felt it fully. I was trapped, not by grief, not by weather, not by circumstance, but by something older, something watching. And I wasn't sure anymore if it wanted me to leave, or if it had brought me here for a reason. I'd always thought grief was the worst thing a person could feel, but I was wrong. There's something worse, knowing you're not alone, and that whatever's with you wants you to believe it loves you. It was just past midnight when I realized the cabin door locked from the outside. I'd slammed it shut in my panic earlier, thought nothing of it, but when I tried to open it again, the handle barely moved. Deadbolt turned. From outside, I was trapped. not metaphorically, not emotionally, literally locked in. I remember pacing, shouting out the window into the dark. No response, just trees swaying, silent. Then came the sound. It started soft, scraping, sliding, like something dragging along the roof. I stood frozen beneath the ceiling, straining to hear. It moved slowly, deliberately, from one end of the cabin to the other. Then silence. I forced myself to check. Opened the front door. Still locked. Nothing above the roofline from outside. But when I came back inside, there were footprints. Muddy, wet, fresh, leading from the front door to the foot of my bed. I backed into the kitchen, heart pounding, breath shallow, my vision blurred at the edges, like reality was bending in on itself. I grabbed the recorder again, not for proof this time. I knew no one would hear this. It was for the next person, if there ever was one. I whispered, if someone finds this, please, don't trust her voice. It's not her. I don't know what it is, but it wears her face. It sounds like her, smells like her, but it isn't her. Not anymore. I closed the journal, then sat on the edge of the bed where the muddy prints ended, and waited. It came around 3:11 a.m. The door creaked open by itself. Even though I'd just checked, it was locked from the outside, and she walked in, or something that looked like her. Same face, same eyes, hair the way she wore it on our last trip together, wearing the blue sweater she'd been buried in. But she didn't blink, didn't breathe. She stood perfectly still, and then she spoke. Why did you leave me? I couldn't answer, not at first, because the voice, it was hers, but not. Each word had an echo beneath it, like someone tuning a radio just off frequency, like two voices speaking at once, one human, one other. I choked on my own breath. I didn't. I never left you, I said. You were taken from me. She tilted her head, just slightly. Were you watching the road? Silence. My stomach dropped. Do you remember the sound the tires made when we spun off? Her eyes stayed wide, glassy, not moving. Do you remember the scream? I felt something snap inside me. I dropped to my knees. I sobbed, said I was sorry, said I'd never forgiven myself, said I'd come here to be with her, that I didn't care what happened. I'd let it take me. I was done fighting. She knelt down in front of me. Cold fingers brushed my cheek, and she whispered, so close I could feel her breath, but it was like a freezer opening in winter. Then look, in the well. I blinked, and she was gone. No door slam, no footsteps, just empty air where she'd stood. The smell of lavender flooded the room again, choking, overwhelming, and I knew, whatever this was, it didn't want me to remember her. It wanted me to remember what I did, and now it wanted me to see where it came from. Then look in the well. Those words echoed through my mind, again and again, and somehow I knew I'd have to go back there, not to run, not to find answers, but to finally see the thing I'd buried, the thing that hadn't stayed buried. I don't remember grabbing the flashlight. I don't remember opening the door. All I know is one moment I was kneeling in the dark, and the next I was sprinting through the woods barefoot. Tree branches scraped my arms, roots caught my ankles, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. The well was calling, and when I reached the clearing, I knew something had changed, because the grass was torn. Fresh drag marks led through the dirt, like something had been pulled, something heavy. They ended right at the mouth of the old stone well, that same well I'd nearly fallen into just nights ago. Now, it was wide open, waiting. I approached slowly, flashlight flickering like it knew what was coming. The closer I got, the more the air changed, thicker, heavier, like breathing through wet cloth. I pointed the beam into the shaft and froze. There, at the bottom, maybe 20 feet down, were my journal pages, not the ones I'd just written. These were from before the trip. Back home, the entries I'd left on my desk, the ones about my guilt, the accident, the dreams, the things I'd started seeing in reflections. Soaked, mouldy, but unmistakably mine. Then I saw more. My scarf, the grey one my wife gave me the Christmas before she died. I hadn't packed it. I remember clearly. I'd left it at her grave. Next to it, my wedding ring, bent, burnt at the edge like it had been in a fire. And then, worse, my driver's license, singed, curled, edges blackened and fused, my face still visible, barely, like it had been through hell. I whispered, without meaning to, "What the hell is this?" And then I heard her, but not her, not my wife, not the voice that whispered sorrowfully from the woods. This was different. This voice was wrong. It scraped through the air like metal dragged across bone. A woman's voice, but not really. "You were supposed to come sooner." I fell back, scrambled on hands and knees away from the well, and that's when I saw it. A face emerged from the well, but it wasn't my wife's. It wore a woman's shape, but the proportions were wrong. Too long, too wide. The smile reached past where a mouth should end. No eyes at first, just wet sockets that blinked from the inside out. Hair floated like it was underwater, though there was no water. It stared up at me with this hungry, resentful stillness, like it had waited a long, long time, and was no longer patient. I turned to run, but something stopped me. Heat, not from the air, but from behind me. I turned, and there it was, the cabin, engulfed in phantom flames. No smoke, no sound of crackling wood, just this eerie, glowing blaze, flickering in absolute silence. And through the window, I saw her silhouette again, my wife, or the thing wearing her, watching. Then came the scream, from the well, so loud it cracked inside my skull. Not just sound, but pressure, like my ears were folding inward. The wind surged, branches whipped violently, and the ground seemed to pull under me. I tried to run. I really did, but something, some force I couldn't see, grabbed my legs, dragged me backward. The trees blurred above me. The sky vanished, and the last thing I remember was being pulled down into complete darkness. My flashlight skittered across the rocks, stopped just at the edge, still on, still flickering, then silence, real, total silence, as if the forest had swallowed me whole. The sheriff arrived just after dawn. He'd received a garbled radio call late the night before, a voice, barely intelligible, saying something about a well, a fire. She's not real. He knew the property. Locals always did. They joked about it over drinks at the bar, told newcomers never to book it in the off-season. They didn't laugh this time, because this wasn't the first disappearance. The sheriff parked at the trailhead and hiked in, boots crunching against frozen brush. The forest was too quiet. Even the birds stayed away. When he reached the cabin, it was as still and undisturbed as it had been for years. No fire damage, no broken windows, no blood, no man, just silence. But something felt off. He found no luggage, no car, no sign anyone had even been there, except for one thing, a journal, nailed into the trunk of a gnarled pine just beyond the well, like someone had tried to make sure it wouldn't be lost. Pages were torn, soaked, and scorched at the edges, but still legible. Names scratched out. Sentences looped over themselves. Phrases repeated. It wasn't her. She knew things no one else did. The well sees what you bury. But it was the final line, written in a frantic, broken scrawl, that chilled the sheriff to his bones. I'm still here. He took the journal, left everything else untouched. There was nothing more to do. No one ever stayed long enough to fix the cabin. No one ever went back, because something waits in that forest, not just in the cabin, not just in the well, but in the echoes, in the voices that sound familiar. The sheriff doesn't talk about it anymore, not after the other disappearances. The honeymoon couple from 3 summers ago, the solo hiker who left his gear behind but not his footprints, the college kids who joked about the ghost woman and never made it out. He doesn't talk about it, because deep down, he knows the truth. They're never seen again, but something always watches. 6 months later, a new man checks in, late 40s, quiet, reserved. Wife just left him, needed to clear his head. Says he found the cabin listing on a random rental site. Strange, it hadn't been listed for years. But the listing was there, just for one day, just for him. He didn't even think twice. He pulls into the drive, gets out of the car, grabs his bags, looks up at the porch, and sees the rocking chair, already moving. Soon,